Hello, and welcome to Spotlight On, the podcast that brings together business leaders, entrepreneurs, and experts covering a range of topics. I'm Nicholas Barton, founder and CEO of the Barton Partnership. We're an award-winning executive recruitment and consulting solutions firm providing permanent search and independent consulting services across strategy, sustainability and M&A, data and analytics, and transformation and change.
Hi everyone, welcome. I'm very happy to be recording this today. It's International Women's Day, which seems like the perfect day to be recording another podcast for our Women in Leadership series. So today I'm delighted to be joined by Martine Broeders, who is a Vice President at Estée Lauder Companies in the ESG Office based out of New York. I'm really looking forward to a conversation about her career, ESG strategy, and of course, female leadership. So welcome, Martine.
Thank you. I'm really delighted to be here, especially on International Women's Day. And I think it's a great occasion to just, have a chat with you today.
Brilliant. Well, look, why don't we kick off with a bit of an overview? We'd love to learn a bit about your career journey to date and how you got to where you are today. Over to you.
Well, I started my career in a bit of a non-traditional way. While I was still finishing my master's degree in the Netherlands, I had an opportunity to do a 3-month internship in Shanghai in China. And that 3-month internship turned into 3.5 years of working for Eli Lilly in China. From China, I actually moved to the US to work at Eli Lilly's headquarters in Indiana. And then I did my MBA. And then after my MBA, I worked as a management consultant. And I worked also in various strategy roles. In 2015, I was approached about a 3-month consulting project at the Estée Lauder Companies. And the project turned into a permanent role. And fast forward to 2023, this is where I still am. So what attracted me to the Estée Lauder Companies was the opportunity to work for a high-performing global company where I really felt a connection with the products because I engaged with them as a consumer myself. I was also super excited to join a company that was founded by a woman and today employs more than 80% women. And this was quite a departure from my previous experience where oftentimes, you're the only woman on the table or there's only fewer women in a meeting. It was really refreshing to be working in an environment with so many women. And at the get-go, I just felt like this is a company that is a great fit for me. The company has very strong family values. It takes care of its people, and it has a really strong focus on relationship building. And this combination of high performance, the strong values, and the care that it's taking is really what makes Estée Lauder unique. And I often say, as individuals, we just spend so much of our time at work. So it's really important to me to work at a place that really walks the talk and where my values align with the company.
That's great. Thanks for that overview. I love that. I love the female founder piece and, 80% women as an employee base for such a big company is pretty amazing. I also laugh at the theme of staying somewhere, go for an internship and stay for 5 years, go for a project and stay for
story of my life.
Exactly. I love that. There's lots of international themes, lots of movement, both nationally and internationally. Tell us a little bit about that. How has your international experience shaped your career? And what have you learned working in those different regions?
Well, I'm so grateful for having had the opportunity to work internationally so early on in my career. As I mentioned earlier, I think I grew up in the Netherlands, then I go straight from the Netherlands to China, go from China to the US, go to Switzerland, go back to the US. I've been in the US now for quite a bit. But that international experience, especially so early on in your career, really helps change your perspective. It helps change my perspective on the world and open doors for me that I just could have never, ever have imagined. I just grew so much personally and professionally. And I just really still remember very vividly the day that I kind of got off the plane in Shanghai. We landed there. And I just like, I'm just stepping into a completely different environment, different culture. I didn't speak one word of Mandarin. So it was an overwhelming experience. And at the same time, you're thousands of miles away from your family, from your friends. And at that time, being away from family and friends physically for thousands of miles really meant being away from very far from your family because it wasn't the time that, calls were super cheap. So we had to, commute communicate mostly by fax, and we send each other faxes to keep each other posted. I just learned because you're really in a situation where you have to rely on yourself very quickly, or you have to just really kind of like find, the resources within yourself. It's all about learning and really trusting yourself that you can figure it out. And I had that experience so early on. And so I'm really grateful for that. And it's also, I think, professionally, it was a very unique experience because this is actually, like an experience that not that many people have. You're basically becoming part of a team that is starting business operations in China. So it's a large company that's actually starting the operation. So it's actually quite entrepreneurial within a large organization. And our office, for instance, our office space was in a hotel. And we shared that space with General Motors that was also entering China at the same time. So it was just a completely different experience of starting your career than in any other place. So fascinating. And when we're talking about what I learned from this experience, I think it's again, being resourceful. Like there's support that you're getting from the global company, but you have to find things out on the ground. You have to figure things out. And I just remember like one day, the country manager, he just, came to me and said, oh, you know what, we really need to find like some software solution that can support our local operations because everything that global recommended was, overkill. It was too much for the size of our operations. And I had no idea, no experience whatsoever in this area. But I started, working with the team, looking at the requirements locally, working, talking to contacts I had already built, other companies in China. And so we were able to figure it out and find a solution that actually worked specific to our needs. That last point really brings me back to my biggest learning, and that's the importance of building relationships and collaboration, especially when you're in an environment like China. It's so different. And so people often tend to actually focus on differences. But at the core, we're all human beings and we're all so connected. And so just by taking the time to build the relationships, by taking genuine interest in each other, asking questions, and just, will help us collaborate better. And, it really makes what seems often impossible possible.
That's a great answer. I love it. It really resonates a lot with myself, having moved from the UK to the US. I think, that mixture of both the personal and the professional change that perhaps you're not even expecting when you make the move, and being resourceful as well. Something really, really fun, but also really challenging and amazing about being able to be entrepreneurial in quite a big infrastructure and a big company. I love those learnings. How's your Mandarin now?
Well, it's one of those things that I actually diligently was, studying while I was in China. Yeah. I can still say a few words, but they are very basic. I still remember left, right, how to get a taxi, negotiate, but that's about it. But, one day if I go back, I can still apply some of the things. But again, I would say, Mandarin is not something I kept up with, unfortunately.
There's still some other valuable learnings I imagine you've carried with you, like you said. That's great. Jumping forward to today, your role now is ESG focused. So tell us a little bit about how ESG, and especially sort of the rise of ESG over the past couple of years, has influenced the Estée Lauder Companies' business strategy. We'd love to understand how that's pivoted.
Yeah, it's actually interesting because that question often comes up, like, the rise of ESG. But to be honest, like, in many ways, sustainability and social impact are really already part of the Estée Lauder Companies for a long time. Estée Lauder Companies is a family company. And as a family company, you're actually thinking long-term. You're thinking about very strategically about how you can advance possibilities for the next generation of leaders. And that's actually something that's what ESG is all about. So as a company, we've made public commitments and that are tied to our purpose agenda and to specific areas of impact across our business. Since it's International Women's Day, I just want to talk a little bit more about what we're doing in this space. Because we're making some conscious choices as a company to identify where we can really make meaningful impact. It's not just about impact, it's about meaningful impact. And so one of those areas is women's advancement. We were founded by a woman. So women's advancement is not just in our DNA. It's really integral to the success of our company and to our business strategy. Like I said, we have 81% of women that are in our global workforce today. And so we feel like a deep sense of urgency and responsibility to advance women by addressing some of the challenges and the issues that are holding them back, not only within our company, but also worldwide. So gender equality is definitely a strategic priority for us. We've integrated this into strategies of our brands, our regions, and our functions, and we're tracking progress against those goals. And I have to say, we've made some really important progress over the last couple of years. And, I'm really happy that women's advancement is a huge cornerstone of our overall ESG efforts.
That's fantastic. It's very clear when you talk about it that it's not just sort of buzzwords or a gesture. It really is a very holistic approach to all of those ESG components. You talked a little bit about the women advancement piece, which is obviously very appropriate for today. How else are you measuring and keeping accountable for the business's ESG goals?
Well, I think what really keeps us accountable is that we have public commitments. And so these commitments, they drive transparency inside and outside of the organization. So, you set a goal, and so you're actually reporting on your goal, you're sharing your journey, you're sharing the progress. We've set public commitments that are helping us be accountable. It drives transparency both inside and outside of our company. And I think that's really critical, just by being able to set a commitment and then share your progress and share your journey. That's really, I think, the main thing that keeps us accountable to our goals. And I can stay with the example of women's advancement here. Like a couple of years ago, we actually announced our gender equality goals. And since then, we've been tracking them. We've reporting on them, at least, on an annual basis in our reports. And we're really focusing on, sharing the journey with all our stakeholders. And as a result, we've seen that we've already made some significant strides in supporting women and girls. I can share some numbers with you, but 59% of VP positions and above at Estée Lauder Companies are held by women. And we're on track to achieve our goal of global pay equity by 2023. Also, our board, we have 44% of women on our board. And for instance, all of our global innovation centers are led by women. So there's just examples of the strides that we've made as a company. We're committed, and we're actually committed to do more.
That's fantastic. And I think the part that's almost the most exciting is that senior level. So you mentioned the VP level positions at 59%, the board positions at 44%. And as we know, across nearly every industry, it's pretty easy to have a 50-50 split of graduate intakes and keep that and sustain that the first couple of years. But to be able to demonstrate that upwards through the VP and the board position really, really speaks to the culture, the mentorship, the levels of retention and everything that comes with that. Brilliant.
Yeah, it's not only about attracting women; it's also retaining them, giving them the opportunities. So educational skills, opportunities to actually advance in their career, and just make sure that we help them and just remove any biases that there might be, so that women can really work and explore their full potential in the company.
Well, that's really inspiring to hear, especially today. So what advice would you give to women who are looking to grow and progress their career, whether it's across sort of consumer and retail, whether it's across ESG? Would love to hear some of your insights there.
So the industry is actually very opposite of being transactional. I think this is really heavily relation-based industry. And so my biggest piece of advice is to build your network by taking a real interest in people and learning from what others are doing in the organization and in the industry. And I think, by just focusing on relationships, it will open you up to just newer opportunities, bigger, bolder opportunities. And so these are things that, maybe you've never imagined before. I worked in, finance roles, strategy roles, org design roles throughout my careers, and I've made several moves vertical and horizontal moves. And I learned so much from everything that I did. And I met some really amazing and inspiring people along the way. And it's just, it helped me build a network that's lasting. And so whenever you're like making the next move, starting a new endeavor, you have basically that backbone of, the people that you've worked with, that network that you have, that you can always lean back onto.
That's great. You talk a lot about relationships, a lot about building networks, and so much about what we read is about women supporting women and about how sometimes that can be a challenge within other organizations. So how do you think the business has fostered a culture of women supporting women rather than competing with each other?
I think it's really the informal network. I think there's a couple of things, that are employee-led that are just so important. For instance, we actually have an ERG, an employee resource group in the company. That's our largest employee resource group. That's really focused on bringing women together, sharing, being open, and it's a very successful ERG. And I think that's just one of the things that just shows that how women are focused on just also helping each other. I mean, it's just really one of the platforms where we have senior leadership share their story. It's about being vulnerable. It's not about saying, okay, this is where I got and this is how it happened, but it's about sharing your vulnerability. So yes, of course, there's an element always of competition, but I think that the culture that we have and the fact that it's very much focused on taking care of each other actually is pervasive also here. So I think as women, we are all to support each other. It's just about setting that example. If my current boss sets that example, I'm trying to set that example. It's really about paying it forward as we can. And I think that's what we're seeing a lot in this organization.
That's great. And I think so much of the messaging, the words that you sort of keep throwing out around being vulnerable, being authentic, being transparent, it does really feel like a work environment where you can show up and be yourself, be who you are, and that's reflected out into the marketplace as well. So I think that's, from my perspective at least, it's really coming across. Thank you. So look, just to finish off, what are you most excited about? Whether it is your ESG component of your role, whether it's women's advancement, whether it's all of those things combined or something different, what are you most looking forward to for the rest of 2023?
Well, I'm so excited about progress that we've made so far in women's advancement. So we've set some really ambitious goals, and we're on track to delivering them. I mentioned to you that, today, 59% of our VP positions and above are held by women. We've set a goal, actually, that by 2025, we are looking to achieve global gender parity for women in the most senior leadership positions. And that means that, these are roles that are SVP and above. Today, we're already at 47%. So again, we're making great progress there. Yeah. We're also on track to achieve global pay parity this year. So that is incredibly exciting. And then last but not least, that is something I would really love to talk about to you, is our unique women's leadership program. Mm. You asked me earlier about how women support each other, the competition versus, I think the women's leadership program, it's called Open Doors, is actually an example of how as a company we're showing up and how we're supporting each other as women in the organization. This program is for our emerging talent in the company, and it gives them skills and support that they need to thrive. So these are skills that you may not learn in school. So these are things like building relationships, understanding your leadership style, developing your personal brand, and really focuses on giving these employees critical skills. And these groups are very vulnerable. So when you talk to each other, it's actually really a group that is just, sharing openly and learning from each other. And I think that's just very critical. And that program has now expanded internationally. We've reached, women in 15 countries, and we've had a great track record of success already. Just 18 months after completing the Open Doors intensive program that I was just talking about, we see an 89% retention rate. 1 out of 2 participants were promoted, and 100% of participants report an increase in growth mindset. And then there's also a whole collection, an Open Doors collection, that is all online, all about leadership skills. And it's an online resource. And that's just, amazing because we see so much employee engagement with that too. And not only that, we're seeing that employees are actually starting their own and designing their own learning community. So again, it's about not just, like a company that's doing things top down, but it's really all of our employees are involved in it and really helping, each other.
Thanks, Martine. It's really amazing to hear about the global pay parity being reached in 2023. I think we often set these goals 5-10 years in the future. So to hear that that's actually coming to fruition this year is really exciting. And I think that, again, just sort of going back to what I said, so much of what you're saying, it's very tangible, it's very genuine, very real. There's clear goals, there's clear outcomes that are quantifiable. But I think in terms of how they actually impact women's lives in the workplace on a day-to-day basis, it's almost impossible to put that into metrics. So it's really amazing to have that balance and have the groups, have the networks. Yeah, I really have enjoyed listening to you talk about it, hearing how authentic it is, how transparent it is. And I think there's probably some clear action points people can take away. So thank you so much for talking us through it.
Thank you as well. We know there's more work to be done, and I'm looking forward to continuing to collaborate across our brands, our regions, and our functions to help build a world that we know is possible. And that's a world where women and girls globally have every opportunity to thrive.